Welcome, everybody, to the Jim Masters Show. It's so great to have you with us. Hope you guys are enjoying the day. And, of course, in the midst of the holiday season, as we bring this broadcast to you, I'm your host, Jim Masters. If you're joining us for the first time, we welcome you. I work professionally in television and radio and stage and film and have for a good long time. And we created this series about 2.5 years ago as a way to sort of bring back the lost art of conversation, bring it in where we're all interactive. We all learn something. We're all entertained. We all have a really, really good time together. And it's just really, really extraordinary. And it's been amazing, the amount of shows, the amount of episodes, and everything that we have done with and for all of you, everybody that's watching literally from all around the world. Gang, if you would like to comment during the show, we give you that opportunity in our JMS chat room we have there. We call it the Lovity chat room because the show is filled with all kinds of lovity, which is really cool. You have an opportunity to actually connect with us. You can connect with us in the chat room when you subscribe to the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is the channel that you're watching right now. Yeah, that's Jim Masters TV. The channel is Jim Masters TV. The show is the Jim Masters Show. And when you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you can actually interact with one another in the chat room and with us as well. So if you'd like to do that, feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's no cost when you do that. And you get to have a fantastic opportunity to experience the interactivity that this series, this show, offers for all of you. Hey, boy, we have somebody that is renowned in his field, renowned in the industry. He is an extraordinary journalist, a sports journalist extraordinaire, also a baseball historian. You guys know I love baseball. I played it from Little League to Pony League, all the way up to high school, and absolutely still love it. He's an acclaimed sports journalist, baseball historian, and many times over, New York Times best-selling author. Peter Golenbock is here, and we are so excited to have him here, but also excited for him because he has a new book that's out. Yeah. And this could even be a great gift for somebody that you know loves sports, somebody that you know is a big baseball fan as well, Take a look at this. Whispers of the Gods. This is really incredible. The amount of interviews that he has in here with the legends. These are tales from baseball's golden age, told by the men who played it. Whispers of the Gods is absolutely off the charts. People are raving about it. It's highly acclaimed and received, and it's really, really fantastic. I encourage you to add it to your collection, or somebody, again, that you know that loves sports, specifically baseball. You're going to absolutely love it. Let me tell you a little bit about our illustrious guest. Not only is he a prolific writer, of course, and journalist, but he is a super, super sports fan. He's written more than 60 books, including 10 New York Times bestsellers. The best-selling books on baseball include Dynasty, the New York Yankees, 1949 to 1964, The Bronx Zoo with Sparky Lyle, Bums, an oral history of the Brooklyn Dodgers, Balls with Graig Nettles, Amazin, the miraculous history of New York's most beloved baseball team, and Idiot, beating the curse and enjoying the game of life with Johnny Damon, and Valentine's Way with Bobby Valentine, who I've had the opportunity to meet on several occasions and is a class act. Also, Whispers of the Gods, again, his newest book as well. And Peter resides, he's from the New York area originally, but he resides in beautiful St. Petersburg, Florida. Tell you a little bit about, again, Whispers of the Gods. It's really an extraordinary book, and we want to make sure we show you that cover again, because that way there, when you're perusing through Amazon and other areas where books are sold, you can scoop this up. You're going to want to get all the books, actually. Best-selling author Peter Golenbock brings to life baseball greats from the 40s and 50s and 60s through timeless stories told, again, straight from the players themselves. Like the enduring classic, The Glory of Their Times, this book features the reminiscences of baseball legends pulled from hundreds of hours of taped interviews with the author. Roy Campanella talks about life in the Negro Leagues before coming up to the Brooklyn Dodgers. Ted Williams recounts why he believes Shoeless Joe Jackson belongs in the Hall of Fame. And many, many others. Casey Stengel memories, Mickey Mantle memories, other Yankee icons. Other voices include Phil Rizzuto, Jim Bouton, Monty Irvin, Sam Musial, Ron Santo, Rex Barney, Ellis Clary, Roger Maris, and many, many others. Jim Brosman, Gene Conley. The players interviewed were all stars, Hall of Famers, and heroes to many, and their impact on the national pastime is still seen to this day. Baseball history comes alive with the stories shared in Whispers of the Gods, offering a fascinating account of the golden age of baseball. There is the book there. There is our very special guest, Peter Golenbock. We're so excited to have him here. I just want to run real quick. Here are some of the other books. We'll talk about these as well. These are just some of the other books that he has penned. We're talking about 10 New York Times bestsellers. This one, Wild, High, and Tight, The Life and Death of Billy Martin. Of course, you know, a real character who had managed the New York Yankees for many, many years. Red Sox Nation as well. The Forever Boys. I mean, incredible. Dynasty, the New York Yankees from 49 to 64. And of course, Amazin, the miraculous history of New York's most beloved baseball team, the Mets. And George Steinbrenner as well. You know, even a little bit of a departure, he has this incredible book on life of Tony Curtis. Yes, American Prince and Memoir, Tony Curtis with Peter Golenbock. Yes, isn't that incredible? Here are more covers of some of the books. There I am. Isn't that cool? We'll show you these again as well. And Doug Harvey and Peter Golenbock, They Called Me God. These are books he's been involved with as well over the years. The Spirit of St. Louis. It's incredible. Wrigleyville. And again, we showed Red Sox Nation. He truly is a sports fan as much as he is an incredible sports journalist and author of all these fantastic books. It's my pleasure to welcome Peter to the Jim Masters Show, coming to us again from his home that is filled with great memorabilia in St. Petersburg, Florida. Peter, welcome to the Jim Masters Show. It's so great to have you with us.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I should carry you around with me.
As I say to everybody, your mother faxed that to us this morning, and she said, you best read that verbatim, Jim. Actually, it comes from all of our research, and researching you was a real pastime and a pleasure for me. As I mentioned when we were chatting before we went on the air, I played baseball, love baseball, and played ever since Little League. And matter of fact, this photo goes back in time. This is my cousin Jason. I'm on the left, and my cousin Jason is on the right. He came down from Connecticut. We were on Long Island, and there we are at Chase Stadium. Dad took us to a Mets game at Chase Stadium. And this goes back. And here he's there with his baseball glove, my cousin Jason, ready to catch, you know, a pop foul or whatever it may be, and I'm there with the camera and my notepad as the reporter, right. With my sport coat and everything else at like 13 years old, there in front of
it's
Chase.
Funny how you know when you're that age who you want to be.
Isn't it?
It's
something?
Very interesting.
Did you know then?
I was 12. And I went into the Stanford Public Library and I found a book called The New York Yankees by Frank Graham. And I sat there and started reading it and took it out. And I must have read that thing 4 or 5 times, because this was, let's say I was 12, this would be 1958, in the middle of the Yankees winning all of those great championships. And I wanted to know something about Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Joe DiMaggio. And that book, you know, had it in it. And I never, ever quite forgot that. And after college and after law school, I ended up working for Prentice Hall in Englewood Cliffs, New Jersey. And one day I just happened to find their trade book catalog. And I thought to myself, this would be the perfect place to pitch the sequel to The New York Yankees by Frank Graham. I mean, after all, in the 16 years between 1949 and 1964, The Yankees won 14 pennants and 9 world championships, and drew a million fans every year. So I told the head of the trade book division, his name was Nick Dincheco, if we sell 1%, you're going to sell a hell of a lot of books. And he gave me a contract. He gave me a contract to write that book.
That's amazing, huh?
Yeah.
So what happened from there? So here you are. I mean, even before that, when you were a kid growing up in the New York tri-state area, was baseball the sport of choice for you, or did you like a variety of different sports?
Well, you always like a variety of different sports, but
is that one of the managers calling in for your opinion?
My agent is calling me. It's funny. I haven't had a single phone call all day. Not all day. But this is what happens.
That's it. See what happens when you go on the Jim Masters show.
I was the sports editor. I was the sports editor of the Dartmouth Daily newspaper when I was in college, and Red Rolfe was was the athletic director. Red used to play third base for the New York Yankees in the 30s and the 40s.
Yes,
and the idea that I could have conversations with Red Rolfe. I used to write articles about him in the newspaper. I just love the guy. It just, he was a teammate of Joe DiMaggio's.
Yes.
He played for Joe McCarthy, for crying out loud. And it was thrilling for me. And I would write these articles about him. And also I covered Dartmouth football and basketball and baseball, regularly writing about it. And then I became the sports editor. And then in law school, I had a friend, Bobby Kennedy, who was the son of J. Walter Kennedy, who had been the commissioner of the NBA. And Bobby was the sports editor of the Stamford Advocate. I grew up in Stamford. And I went to Bobby. I called him up and I said, look, if you'll give me credentials to the Knicks, the Rangers, the Yankees, the New York Giants, all these various, the Mets, I'll write you free articles on the weekends. And so he did. And so for 5 years that I lived in New York, I had access to all of these teams. It was fantastic. I wrote articles about Joe Namath. I wrote articles about O.J. Simpson. Phil Jackson was a very close friend of mine during that whole period. So, I got to hang out in the clubhouse with the Knicks as they were winning championships in 1970 and 1973. It was a rather magical, existence for 45 years.
That's amazing. Yeah.
I know.
What do you think it is about specifically in our country, in America, what it is about baseball, this affinity that we have for this national pastime, this beloved game? Why do you think that still exists today?
Well, because it's clearly a more important religion than any religion. I mean, you know that. We go into the Trop to watch the Tampa Bay Rays play baseball, and it's very similar to going to church or temple. You have songs that you sing the same way you do in church or temple. You have, routines, and it's always wonderful. Always. Yeah. You never know what you're going to see that day. You just don't know.
Do you remember the very first baseball game that you went to?
Well, the first thing I ever remember was Willie Mays' catch of Vic Wertz's long fly ball in the 1954 World Series. That's the first memory that I have. The first game I ever remember going to, and I think it was the first game I went to, was the fourth game of the 1956 World Series. My uncle Justin was Jackie Robinson's attorney. And Jackie was moving to Stamford, Connecticut. And Justin needed to meet with Jackie after the game. So this was a game, the Yankees won this game 4-2. It was the game right before Don Larson's perfect game. And after the game, we went down into an area where people could meet the players. And Justin and Jackie talked, and I got to shake hands with him. I couldn't believe how huge his hands were. Jackie was a large, large person, but it always stuck with me, having met Jackie Robinson that day. And one of the things I'm most proud of in my book, Bums, I do believe I was one of the very, very first people to write about the importance of Jackie Robinson in the civil rights movement. The conclusion being that if Jackie Robinson had not succeeded the way he succeeded, it's very possible you would not have had civil rights, advances the way they happened.
Tell us about the book. I know this was near and dear to your heart and a labor of love.
Bums was an oral history. So I got to interview everybody, Campanella, Newcomb, Ferrillo, Pee Wee Reese especially, who was marvelous.
Oh, yeah.
But the most important person who I interviewed for this book was Rachel Robinson. And the reason I was able to interview her was because my uncle was their attorney. So she did me that favor. And we talked for 2.5 hours about all the things that happened. It's interesting. If you see the movie 42, I got no credit for any of it, but most of those incidents in that movie came from the book Bums.
Wow, I didn't realize that either. Yeah. Like you said, you didn't get the credit, so people didn't know, huh?
That's all right. Didn't matter.
That's amazing. Yeah. When you really think about it, the impact that Jackie Robinson, and we got this great shot with Pee Wee Reese.
Yeah, that's a great shot. Yeah.
I mentioned to you that my father grew up in New York, in Astoria, Queens, New York, and tremendous Brooklyn Dodger fan, and loved Jackie Robinson and Pee Wee Reese. And believe it or not, he has passed to me his baseball cards, his Dodgers baseball cards, Pee Wee Reese and all of them. And I have those.
You're lucky your mother didn't throw them out.
He has given those to me, and they're mixed in with all the others that I have from the Yankees and the Mets over the years. I mean, the Tom Seaver cards and the Willie Mays and Hank Aaron's and all the rest. And that was really amazing when the Brooklyn Dodgers decided to depart New York.
Amazing is not exactly the right word for it. How about
horrific?
How about absolutely disgusting? It caused such despair, terrible despair. One of the books I wrote was called In the Country of Brooklyn, where I interviewed all sorts of different Brooklyn people to show how special Brooklyn was, and interviewing former Brooklyn Dodger fans, the three worst people in the world: Hitler, Stalin, and Walter O'Malley.
Yes.
Not far off as far as the way they think about it.
You exactly. The impact that Jackie Robinson made still is talked about today.
Yep.
Did you have an opportunity to meet him, right?
I met him that one day in 1956 when I was 10 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the only time I got to meet him.
And that for you, because he was a hero for you on many levels. Right?
I wrote my senior thesis in college about him.
You know who else? My father really admired Jackie Robinson, but he also still his this is in boxing versus baseball, other hero, Joe Louis.
Sure.
Because of his incredible boxing prowess, but also what he meant for that time when it was against Nazi Germany and what he represented against Max Schmeling.
That's right.
And Lewis was really another incredible hero of the time.
And don't forget Jesse Owens as well.
Where are the heroes today?
They're playing right field for the New York Yankees at the moment.
Right field is what I played when I was in Little League and Pony League and beyond. And one of the teams I was on, here I am lifelong Mets fan, and one of the teams that I was on they were called the Yankees, which was really quite interesting. Yeah, the baseball really again is something that I just think is near and dear to so many people. When you wrote this book that's out now, tell us about what it was like, the writing process, what it was like, assembling all of this, the hours and hours that it took to put Whispers of the Gods together. And congratulations.
I have a pile of tapes from interviews I've done over the last 40 years, probably 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
So Glory of Their Times was always, when I was the sports editor of Dartmouth, the Glory of Their Times showed up in the mail. And I read this thing and I was just enthralled. I'm still enthralled. I still think it's the greatest book ever written about baseball. But when I lived in Englewood, New Jersey, my closest friend was Jim Bouton.
Oh, yeah. We
played on the CBS All-Star softball team together for 5-6 years.
You never played with Channel 2 and Jim Jensen, did you?
Yeah, that was the team I played on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jim Jensen.
I played.
He was pitcher, right?
In the outfield for the Jim Jensen All-Stars. Yes,
and he was the pitcher. Yeah,
he was the pitcher, and he was spectacular.
I always wanted to meet him, being a television broadcast person. What was Jim Jensen like?
He was very intense. A lovely guy.
Yeah.
Prideful.
Yeah.
I think it hurt him when Walter Cronkite retired and he didn't get the job. They gave it to Dan Rather. I think that really kind of hurt him. What hurt him more, though, is his son.
The hang gliding accident.
Hang gliding.
Yeah.
And smashed into the side of a mountain and was killed.
Yeah, right. 1979.
After that, he was never the same.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. It's amazing. He was on the air.
Yeah. And one of the best softball pitchers you can imagine. We did not lose much.
Do you remember who else was on that team?
Duke Carmel, who was the Mets first baseman. He was our first baseman for a while. Roger Repose, who had been with the New York Yankees as an outfielder for a little while. He was in right field. And then the rest of the people are
from Channel 2.
Our left fielder was a star in a soap. And I can't remember his name right now. This would be 1979 to 1985 or 6, something like that. Jim Hutchinson, is that possible? I don't know. Anyhow, he was a star on a soap. So wherever we went in the tri-state area, Connecticut, Westchester, Long Island, the young girls love this guy.
I remember I think at one time, the sports reporter on WCBS Channel 2 was Ron Swoboda as well.
Yes, he was. Ron was there, and Jim was there too. Jim was on Channel 2 for a while. He moved over to Channel 7.
That's right.
He moved over to 7 also, ABC. Anyhow, about 3-4 years ago, Jim Bouton developed dementia.
Yeah.
And then either last year or the year before, he died, which really saddened the hell out of me. And I thought to myself, what can I do to memorialize Jim? And so I got out my interviews that I did with him, and I made the first chapter of the book his recitation to me on how he, as a kid in a little town in New Jersey, somehow was able to become a star with the New York Yankees. And the last chapter of the book was talking about the publication of Ball 4 and how terrible he felt with the negative reaction to it. And then I filled the rest of it with people like Ted, the people you mentioned before, Ted Williams, Stan Musial, Roy Campanella, Rex Barney. I'm looking at the list here.
Yeah.
Tom Ferdinand, who talked wonderfully about the New York Yankees. Gene Connolly talked about when he decided one day he was going to go to Jerusalem.
Yeah.
With Pumpsy Green. Funny story.
Yeah.
Ellis Clary, I put in there because he was on the only team that the St. Louis, recently, the St. Louis Browns were in the World Series against the St. Louis, I guess it was Detroit in 44 against no, that's not right. Against the St. Louis Cardinals, I think it was. Anyhow, the point was that his teammate was a one-armed outfielder. And basically what he talked about is how the guy did not deserve to be playing on the team, but he was only there for publicity. They thought it would be clever. The guy hit about 219, and his teammates hated the guy and used to do terrible things to him. And it's hilarious to read. And so I put that in as one of the chapters. Some wonderful stuff in there. There really is.
Absolutely right. Yeah. It's
Pete Graig. That's his name. Pete Graig was the one-armed outfielder.
Pete Graig. You know, when you talk about it, there's another one that you wrote too that I thought was a terrific spin on it. Teammates. Tell us about Teammates.
Yeah. Well, when I interviewed Rex Barney, who was a pitcher for the Brooklyn Dodgers, I was doing that for the book Bums, and he told me the story of this one game early in the season in 47 when they were in Cincinnati, which is across the river from Louisville, where Pee Wee Reese grew up. And he said before the game, the Cincinnati fans were booing Jackie because he was black. And he said that Pee Wee Reese walked across the field. He was the shortstop, over to first base, where Jackie was playing, and put his arms around his shoulders and stared at the fans. He told me this story, and boy, I had whatever you have down your back when you hear a story like that. I thought, oh my goodness, that is absolutely unbelievable. And so I sat down and I wrote, which ostensibly is a children's book, but really to me is more like a poem about what happened that day. And the last line in it is he is my teammate. And, I probably sold 1 million teammates to fourth and fifth grade teachers over the years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's very inspiring for kids as well to read.
Yes. And kids write me. Sometime the entire class will write me to say something about Jackie and Pee Wee. It's very, very wonderful.
Is Jackie Robinson your ultimate favorite baseball player, or is there one or two or somebody else that is your personal favorite?
There's somebody else.
There is.
Well, let's see if I can figure out a way with this Zoom thing to show it to you.
Let's take a look at his. Mickey Mantle.
How about that guy?
Matter of fact, while you're there, tell us about, you've got these plates on the wall there. I mean, you are surrounded by history.
I got stuff. Yeah, I do have stuff. Yeah. That middle plate you saw was the Darn Larson Perfect Game 1956 plate. I got that many years ago and sitting on my wall.
Do you still have your baseball cards?
I traded my baseball cards for autographs. I sold my autographs for $65,000 when I needed the money to pay the mortgage. And 3 years later, those autographs were worth $2.5 million.
Interesting how that happens, but you paid off the mortgage, so you're good. And now the house is worth more.
I'd have been, we ended up selling that house too, which that's a whole other story. I should have kept the cards.
Still have all the cards here. Still have all the cards.
Very good.
We used to take the cards and
don't tell me you put them in bicycle wheels.
They did do that too. They used to take the clothespin and then they would put it on and with the banana.
We used to flip cards.
And we did the flipping.
I was a card flipper. I was a card flipper.
Right. And my father got me this, which was very cool, and I've saved it ever since. This is a baseball bat, Louisville Slugger, that was made, a commemorative bat that was a promotion with Magnavox, and I've had this ever since. And this was when, and of course, this big number, which has been surpassed now, Hank Aaron hit 715.
Oh, wow.
Braves versus Dodgers. Yeah, the pitcher Al Downing. It's got the serial number on it and everything else with his autograph commemorative
Yeah.
bat. And it was really something. And
Yeah, that was the other children's book that I wrote. It's called Brave in Every Way. And
yes,
it's a recitation of what happened to Hank before, during, and after he hit that home run to break Babe Ruth's lifetime record.
yes, yes. He was something, Hank Aaron, too, huh?
He was wonderful. He was.
The gold standard.
Very quiet guy, though.
Yes.
Even today, Hank never gets mentioned. When people talk about the greatest ever, he somehow always gets left out.
And like Jackie Robinson, he faced a lot of negativity over the years, too.
Absolutely.
At the height.
Absolutely, he did.
People don't realize, what was really nice to see, it was terrific to see, actually, was this past summer when the New York Mets brought back Old Timers Day.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They did just such a beautiful job bringing everybody back and just having that real feel again that it had. And I didn't realize they had not had one, because we always went to them and we used to love the double headers on Sundays and all of that and all the promotional things you would get. And I think it was since 1994 or something they hadn't had any old timers.
Is that right? Isn't that something?
That many years they went without an Old Timers Day, and you figure. But it was so terrific, and it was sold out, and it was live on TV, and it was just, we need things like that in our lives because it makes you feel so good. You know what I mean?
The quintessential All-Star game was always at Yankee Stadium.
Yes, the All-Star game. Yes,
I had the opportunity to go to a bunch of All-Star Old Timers Day games where I got to meet
timers. Yeah,
you got to meet DiMaggio.
We would go to both. Yeah, we would go to Shea Stadium. We would go to Yankee Stadium. We would and enjoy it all. And I know you and I were telling me beforehand that I was talking about how we still refer to Citi Field. For those watching, beyond the environs, that's the home of the New York Mets, but it used to be Shea Stadium, of course. We still. And I hear a lot of people in the New York area still refer to, we're going to the game at Shea. We still say Shea.
Sure.
You didn't really, you weren't a fan of when they tore down the other Yankee Stadium to build a new one, right?
Didn't need to do it. Right. They didn't need to do it. There was nothing wrong with the old Yankee Stadium. They had fixed it up 1973, 74, taken out the poles that people had to sit behind. They had refurbished it. They didn't need to do anything more to it.
I remembered that. Yeah, that was a whole big thing when they did that. Then the
Yanks for a while played at Shea.
Yeah. Yes. I remember when they were doing the stadium, Yankee Stadium. They would play at Shea Stadium, and the Jets would also play at Shea Stadium as well. At times when they needed to use the grounds. So Shea was used for a lot of different things, and it was really something. I do miss it greatly. This is great. Speaking of going back to the Yankees, Wild, High, and Tight, The Life and Death of Billy Martin. Probably one of the definitive books on him. Tell us about this for folks who aren't familiar with this book, Peter.
Well, Billy and I did his autobiography together, the book number 1. So I was pretty close to Billy. And, the day after he died, which was Christmas of, what year was it? I don't know, 89, 90, something like that. It was
shocking news. Yeah.
Shocking news. But the next day, my agent called me up and said, you're going to write Billy's autobiography or his biography. And I said, fine. And he got me a contract within about 3 days.
He died on Christmas Day, 1989.
Yeah, 89, right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Christmas Day.
So I went out to Berkeley, and I interviewed his mother, and I interviewed 2 of his wives, and I interviewed, ball players, and I interviewed friends of his when he was in high school, teammates of his, when he was playing baseball in California in the minor leagues. He was playing for Casey. And Casey came up to the Yankees in 1949, and Casey promised him, you stay one more year in Oakland and I'll bring you up next year. And he did. And he was really Casey's Bobo.
Yeah.
Casey treated him like a son.
Yeah.
And Casey, who learned his craft from John McGraw, Billy learned his craft from Casey.
Right.
And Billy was just a fascinating guy. He
Wasn't
really
he?
was.
Yeah, and the relationship, the on and off with Steinbrenner was always
That was the stupidest thing Billy ever did.
Yeah, it was fascinating to see.
I know, but
like
Billy decided that his goal in life was to be the manager of the Yankees, not to be the manager of anybody else. So when they fired him at Texas and Steinbrenner hired him, Billy knew damn well that he was going to play for somebody who was, impossible to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But he did it anyway. And he
Right.
got fired. And he got fired a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time, and a fifth time. Now, who does that? And the sad thing about it, this Clete Boyer told me that at the time he died, Steinbrenner was bringing him back for a sixth time.
Why do you think that was? Why do you think?
I tell you exactly why it was. Is because Billy knew how to win, and the other guys didn't get the same performance out of the players that Billy did.
Yeah.
Billy should be in the Hall of Fame right now, no question asked. He was one of the greatest managers who ever managed the game. He would be 3 innings ahead of the manager on the other side. They were scared to death of him, for crying out loud. But because Billy got fired 5 times by Steinbrenner, people are saying, what good was he? He kept getting fired. But the reason he got fired because the guy who hired him was nuts.
Should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, of course he should be in the Hall of Fame. He only got 200 hits a year for 24 years.
Right.
You're going to keep this guy. You're going to keep Joe Jackson out of the Hall of Fame. The guy hit 342 lifetime. Ridiculous.
Right.
You got a guy in the Hall of Fame who for 24 years did everything he could to keep African Americans from playing Major League Baseball. Kennesaw Mountain Landis. This guy's in the Hall of Fame. So I don't care what you want to tell me about Barry Bonds or Mark McGwire or Sammy Sosa or any of these other guys. Whatever they were doing wasn't a tenth as bad as what Kennesaw Mountain Landis did.
He should be in that Hall of Fame. Absolutely.
He is in the Hall of Fame. He's just not voted in. You go to the Hall of Fame, you'll find him. I promise you, you will. You'll find Bonds. You'll find Pete.
You showed that poster of Mickey Mantle. What was it about Mickey Mantle for you that made him a standout for you?
Not just me. An entire generation of Yankee fans. There are millions of us who felt exactly the same way.
I always like Whitey Ford, too.
Yeah, but Whitey was a pitcher, and he pitched every 5th day. And he was, as wonderful a pitcher he was, he may have been one of the 2 or 3 best pitchers. Yeah. Who ever pitched for the Yankees. He was quiet. Yeah. He wasn't very colorful.
No, he was sort of reliable and always there.
He would start the trouble, and then when the trouble began, he would very politely opt out.
Yeah, leave no fingerprints.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right. But wonderful, wonderful person. Yeah. Just a terrific person. But Mickey was the guy. Every kid of a certain age who watched the Yankees in that era held the bat the same way, with the pinky finger over the end of the end of the bat, ran the way Mickey ran, tried to switch hit if they could. I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I was batting left-handed, playing baseball in my backyard, and I pulled a pitch off to the right, batting left-handed, and broke the broke the window, the giant window in the living room of my house. Smash!
And you're still here you live to tell the story.
I did live to tell the story. Yes. That was, Of course. No, we all loved Mickey Mantle. We just thought he was wonderful. And one of the books that I wrote, which was 7. It's the only novel that I've ever written. It was the book that I felt Mickey would have written had he had the nerve to do it, which was the real true story of who he was. he had been abused by his father in a terrible way. And in a sense, he was also abused by Casey Stengel. Whatever Mickey did was never, ever, ever good enough for Casey.
Yeah.
You know, one time reporters asked him in front of Mickey, who was the best baseball player who ever played for you? And Casey nastily said Joe DiMaggio. DiMaggio played for him 49, 50, and part of 51. You know, Mickey played from 51 through 60. And Mickey certainly, you know, won a lot of those, helped win a lot of those pennants and world championships. For Casey to say that was really hurtful.
You mentioned Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio was not somebody known to really give interviews. He didn't really want to do that, right?
Well, he didn't want to do that. He was the only guy I didn't interview in Dynasty. And for what I understand, the reason was that he didn't want people asking him about Marilyn Monroe.
Marilyn Monroe, yeah.
He'd been married to her for 9 months. And apparently he couldn't stand her celebrity. And after 9 months, she got out of there. That was enough.
Tell us about that book, From 49 to 64.
Yeah. Yeah, it was my first book. It was my very first book. Nick Dincheco gave me $2,500. So I went to Yankee Stadium, and Marty Appel, who was the assistant PR director, you know Marty, I'm sure.
Sure.
Marty said, sure, come on by. Come do your research here. And so September, October, November, December, and January, I'm in Yankee Stadium. They had a tremendous number of newspaper files, hundreds of thousands of them. And I did my research. And at that point, when I finished doing that, I said to myself, you know, you can't write a book based on newspaper articles. That's absurd. You're going to have to go see these people. So I went back to Nick Dincheco and I said, you know, I need to go see these people. Can you give me another $2,500? And he did. And I started interviewing. I got in my car and started flying around the country. 33,000 miles I covered.
Did you really?
And I interviewed all those players who played on the Yankees from 49 to 64. It was magnificent experience. It was just 3 years of wonder.
You
and
know,
I went back and got another 2,500 and another 2,500 so I could finish.
You know, it's an interesting thing that happens. Sometimes it's a fine line we walk too, but it's an interesting thing that happens when you are tasked with, and I've had it too in working in television and radio. There are people that we are tasked with having to meet and converse with and interview or whatever it may be, have these conversations with in these formats, who we have always admired and always revered. And it's an interesting thing that you have to do to maintain the composure, the professionalism, and be the journalist or the host or the writer or the entertainer, whoever it is.
That's right.
While at the same time, you're still the fan inside.
You have to come to these interviews prepared.
Yes.
You must show the person you're interviewing that you have done your homework.
And you're interested, right.
And you're interested. So you start with questions where the person you're interviewing says to himself, whoa, he knows this?
Right.
And you leave the most, you know, the toughest questions for the end.
Right.
It's funny. The one player. Okay, so I call Mantle up and I want to go see Mickey Mantle. I said, sure, come to my home in Dallas. So I fly to Dallas and I land at the airport and I get on the phone and I dial the number and his wife, Merlin, picks up. I said, hi, this is Pete Golenbock. I'm here to interview Mickey. And Merlin says to me, Mickey's in New York. So stay overnight in the airport, get on the next plane back to New York, go to Yankee Stadium, where Mickey is. And I just couldn't bring myself to introduce myself to him. So I went to Ellie Howard, who I had already interviewed. And I said, Ellie, would you do me a huge favor and bring me over to Mickey and introduce me to him? And Ellie, who is the sweetest guy in the whole wide world, said, absolutely, I'd be happy to. So he brings me over to Mickey. And I said, hi, Mickey, may I interview you? And Mickey looks me in the eye and he goes, "No." And then he bursts out laughing, which was utterly, it was perfectly Mickey-ish.
Yeah.
He bursts out laughing. And we went into the corner of the clubhouse, and I interviewed him for over an hour. And if I were the type to bring tears to my eyes, it would have brought tears to my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Because what he told me was unbelievable. That this was 1974. He had retired in 1968. So that's 6 years later. And he's telling me that at night he has nightmares, that he's lying in bed in the middle of the night and he can hear the PA announcer going, "Now batting in the third position, number 7, Mickey Mantle." And Mickey in his dream is standing outside Yankee Stadium and he can't find the door to get inside.
That would
that was the story that he told me.
That would be a nightmare. Yeah. That would
Unbelievable.
Isn't that
Unbelievable.
something? And he shared that with you.
And he shared it with me. Yes.
What I was saying earlier a little bit was, we're tasked sometimes with these roles where we are now in the presence of individuals that we revere and admire. And there is that, like you said, you have to be prepared. You have to also, you should show genuine interest, even if it's a subject that you're not familiar with, learn about it.
That's right.
Go beyond, I always, for myself, always like to find the human behind everything else. Who is this person? What makes them tick? Why do they decide to do what they do? What are some of the things, the passions that they have? And then you can see how they've been able to take that essence of who that person is and everything else they've done with that, including their career and everything else they do, sort of stems out of who the person is. There is that fine line sometimes that you have to do the tightrope walk with when you're such a fan of the person. You admire them so much that if you were still 10 years old, you would be gushing. But now here you are in the role of the journalist or the host or the professional, and you do what you have to do. But behind that, you're saying, "Oh my God, I'm in this room with this person that I've always loved." And how have you been able to balance that, the being the fan of the person with being the professional journalist who's capturing the story with that person?
I would go very quickly from fan to journalist. I had a job to do, and I knew what to do, and apparently I knew how to do it, and I would do it. And I never really had problems interviewing the most famous of these people, because I would go there prepared in my mind with 15, 20 questions to begin.
Right.
So that it wouldn't be like, "Oh, what did you have for breakfast this morning?"
Right.
I never cared about what he had for breakfast this morning, but I did care about, how did the Yankees find you? What is it that made you special when you were a ball player, when you were a kid? And obviously with the known history, just go back and do the research and ask about some of the the greatest moments of all time. The time Denny McClain threw you a meatball and you hit it for a home run, and he told you he was going to do it. That sort of thing.
Were you able to, after the interview, after everything's done, let them know, like a Mickey Mantle, how much he has meant to you over the years?
No, never.
Is that tough not to do that?
No.
You're good with that. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's good you have that ability, because a lot of people that we know would definitely, they would do that. They would be, "Oh my God, my life was only exists because you're in it."
Well,
like they're a rock star.
I can tell you that every once in a while you just get lucky. I mean, one of the people I was trying to interview for Dynasty was Roger Maris.
Oh yeah.
He was known for not being particularly friendly to journalists.
Yeah.
In large part because he wasn't treated very well by journalists.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that. So I had written him, and I had Western Unioned him, and I went to Gainesville to go to his beer distributorship, and his brother basically told me, forget it. You're not going to get the chance. And so I then drove to Atlanta to go see Clete Boyer. He had a Southern bar called the Golden Glove, and Clete was very happy to talk to me. And he told me, come at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'll talk. So I show up at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I order a cup of coffee. I'm sitting at the bar with these other former high school football stars who, somehow didn't make it, but were sitting there drinking beer. And I sat there from 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, when Clete Boyer finally showed up. And who did he show up with? He showed up with Roger Maris. Roger Maris was his best friend. Clete was going to fly the next day to Japan to play his last season for $1 million. And Roger was with him that day. So Clete sits Roger and me down at a table, and I wasn't sure if Roger knew I was the guy who wanted to interview him. But after sitting there for 2 or 3 minutes in sort of very still silence, very uncomfortable, Roger says to me, "Would you like to go outside and talk?" I mean, wasn't that fabulous of him to do that?
Yes.
And he basically spilled his guts for an hour, hour and a half about how terribly Ralph Houck, the general manager of the Yankees, had treated him. I mean, it's just an incredible story. He was going to retire, and he told Houck that. So, and this was in the end of the 66 season. And Houck said, "Do me a favor, please don't announce it now. We'll announce it in the spring, and we'll throw a little party for you." And Roger didn't care. He said, "Okay, fine." And 2 weeks later, Ralph Houck traded him to the St. Louis Cardinals. And that was part of the story. And Roger told me, I couldn't very well retire then. Then I'd have people hate me in St. Louis as well as in New York. And what did Roger do? He led the Cardinals to championships in 1967 and 1968. Why this man is not in the Hall of Fame right now, it just drives me crazy. Just does. The 61 home runs wasn't enough, but he led the Yankees to the pennants in 60, 61, 62, 63, and 64, and led the Cardinals to pennants in 67 and 68.
You mentioned St. Louis. Perfect segue. The spirit of St. Louis.
Yeah.
What a great segue. Tell us about this one, Peter.
Well, it's one of the great baseball towns. It just is. The Cardinals more so than the Browns. But the interesting thing that I discovered as I started interviewing both players from the Cardinals and the Browns was that the Browns had a much crazier history. Many more characters.
Yeah.
I mean, Stan Musial was one of those guys who was, the heart and soul of the Cardinals. Dizzy Dean. Dizzy Dean may have been seen as a crazy kind of a guy, but he really wasn't. And he was just a spectacular pitcher. It's a wonderful story about both of those franchises. I just, adored having the opportunity to interview Marty Marion, who was the shortstop for the Cards. He's in my Whispers of the Gods book, Marty Marion. Because what you do is you take, pieces of your interview and put it in the Cardinals book, pieces of the interview and put it in the Dodger book or the Bums book. But if you interview a guy for an hour and a half, you got a lot more stuff.
Yes.
Interesting stuff too.
Yeah.
And so that's what this book enabled me to do, is to print the rest of the interesting stuff from the interviews.
We mentioned George Steinbrenner, of course, who was quite a character, and the media loved, chatting with him. Tell us about this book here.
Well, it's sort of an interesting story. Trying to think of the year. Was it like 1980, 1981? I signed a contract to write this book. and I started doing the research. I went to Cleveland and I interviewed kids he went to grade school with, and kids he went to Culver Military Academy with, and kids he went to Williams College with. And come December, I started, I don't know, July. Come December, my editor says to me, you know, there are 2 more Steinbrenner books coming out. If you can't have this book finished by January, we're going to drop your book. And I said, well, there's no way in the world I could possibly, finish this. So I had all this fabulous material. And 10, 15 years later, I picked it up again and finished it. This was at the time where George had dementia and he was on the way out. And so I had more of an opportunity to write a book about his entire career with the Yankees than if I had, done this book back in the early 80s. So it worked out. It worked out very well. And I've got a movie company right now who's going to supposedly write a movie using that book for the movie.
That's really exciting, huh?
It is. It is exciting.
Wow. Congratulations on that.
Well, let's see if it happens.
Yeah. I even mentioned Tony Curtis too, American Prince, a memoir, Tony Curtis, with you.
Uh-huh.
Tell us about this.
Well, I was writing a proposal about 4 professional wrestlers. No, they weren't wrestlers. They were rodeo cowboys. There's 4 professional rodeo cowboys, and the champion was African American. And I thought it was a very, very interesting topic. And I wrote this fabulous proposal. We sent it around to publishers, and not one publisher had any interest whatsoever in rodeo cowboys. So I said to the gentleman who brought me the rodeo cowboys idea, I said, do you have any other clients? And he said, yes, I have one other client, and that is Tony Curtis. I said, you're kidding. He goes, no. I said, well, would Tony like to write a book? And sure enough, Tony wanted to write a book. And he was like a brother to me. We had, I can't tell you how much fun we had writing that book. It was just fabulous. And he lived in Henderson, Nevada.
Next to
and
Vegas.
I would go out there. I'd go out there for a week, about once a month, and sit in his house and we'd talk. And the rest of the time we did the interviews, on the telephone, cross country.
What would be something in that book that people would learn about Tony Curtis, perhaps that they didn't know before? Probably a lot.
It's a fabulous story where he writes about what happens during all of those different movies. Some Like It Hot. He did that movie where he was chained to an African American and they were being chased all over the place.
Yeah.
And he insisted that his co-star be given top billing, which was interesting. This is like the 60s.
Yeah.
This is the 60s.
Yeah.
He was such a fine guy. His marriages would last until his wives had children. And then he couldn't stand the fact that they paid more attention to the children than they did to him. Yeah. I know. Who was the gal in Psycho? His
Janet Leigh.
Janet Leigh. He was married to Janet Leigh.
Yeah. Who's
He was married to Janet Leigh. And,
right.
And she was in Psycho for about 3 minutes. She's in this movie and she gets stabbed to death in Psycho. And everybody talks about what a fabulous actress she was.
And forgets about him. And the daughter, Jamie Lee Curtis, daughter of Janet and Tony.
Tony couldn't stand the fact that she was in this movie for 3 minutes. How could she get so famous for being in the movie for 3 minutes? It drove him crazy.
And
he was fabulous. He absolutely was just fabulous. I just love the guy.
Yeah, a real personality on many different levels. Absolutely. Got to get that book, folks.
Who's the guy who sang "What Kind of Fool Am I" on Broadway? We went to his funeral. Tony and I went to his funeral, and Jimmy Kimmel was sitting in front of us, and Sarah Silverman was sitting in front of us. Yeah. Oh, it was that was a day. It was a riot.
What a collection of people, huh?
Oh, yeah, the mayor, Goldman, the mayor, was sitting right behind us with one of the sisters.
Was it Anthony Newley?
No.
He wrote it. He co-wrote that song. Yeah.
No, he hadn't. It wasn't he who died. No, it was a singer who belted out songs on Broadway, and I forgive me for not remembering the guy's name, but it was hilarious.
That's something,
really
huh? That was a nice departure, in a way too, to cover that and to to bring that to bear. Somebody else that I think you have said something which I agree with. One of the biggest mistakes of our beloved New York Mets that they made was not keeping Tom Seaver.
Oh gosh, yes.
Who, tell us why and a little bit about that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if they're going to put a statue outside of Shea Stadium, it's statue's got to be of Tom Seaver. I mean, there are two guys. One was Seaver, the other was Gary Carter. Who
Gary Carter, yes.
Yeah, Seaver. I knew all the people who got traded for Seaver. That's the funny thing. In 1989, there was the Senior Professional Baseball League, and on our team were two of the players from the Cincinnati Reds who had been traded from Seaver for Seaver. One was our right fielder, and one was one of our pitchers. And this was a long time ago. And please forgive me, I don't have Google in front of me, so I can't tell you their names. But they both told me how difficult it was to come to New York to play when they were the guys who were traded for Tom Seaver. The people just adored Seaver, and they were so absolutely furious that they would trade him. Absolutely furious. Terrible thing. Seaver did come back. He did get traded back a few years later, but by that time he was pretty well done.
Yeah. When you think of the Mets, there's no way you don't think of Tom Seaver and Ed Kranepool, who's still, I believe, on Long Island.
He is.
Yeah.
Ed and I started to do a proposal for a book.
Did you really?
Unfortunately, Ed didn't have enough stories to tell that anybody bought it. But another lovely guy, just terrific person.
Mm-hmm. Willie Mays.
I did a book with Lenny Dykstra, who cheated me out of my money.
Dykstra did.
Yeah.
He was on fire in 1986, that's for sure. But
he sure was, and he was on the bestseller list for 2 weeks. So I count that book as one of my 10 bestsellers. But he cheated me out of my money.
Well, behind the scenes there, Willie Mays, of course, another name in baseball that.
Yes, they've had a documentary on HBO the last couple of weeks about Willie Mays.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Difficult man. A very, very difficult man.
What would you say? Perfectionist or
bitter. I asked Monty Irvin, why was Willie so bitter? And Monty basically told me he was bitter because, guys today are making, $10 million a year. And in his greatest year, Willie Mays made $125,000. So that was the bitterness.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Bronx Zoo, another one. Tell us about this.
Oh, boy. That was fairly amazing.
I like the way you described it. That was fairly amazing.
That's a great. Well, after I wrote Dynasty, I got a call from Billy Martin's agent saying that Billy loved what you said about him in Dynasty, and he wants to write his autobiography with you. So I said, fabulous, let's do it. And then what happened? A little while passed, and he says, well, Billy's, he's can't do it right now, but I have one other client. I said, who's that? He says, Sparky Lyle. How would you like to do a book with Sparky? So I said, why would anybody be interested in a book written by a relief pitcher. Even though Sparky had won the Cy Young Award in 1977 for his relief pitching, the guy wanted his percentage. So he was very smart. He said to me, listen, go down, it's spring training is here. Go down to St. Peter's, I'm in St. Peter. Go down to Fort Lauderdale. Go down to Fort Lauderdale and sit in the clubhouse with Sparky and see what you can see. And I did just that. I got on the plane, flew to Fort Lauderdale, went to the Yankee clubhouse, sat with Sparky. And who's sitting in this clubhouse with me and Sparky? Thurman Munson, Reggie Jackson, Catfish Hunter. Did I say Thurman Munson?
Thurman Munson.
Twice. Yeah. That's quite okay.
Ron Guidry.
Billy Martin is there. George Steinbrenner is upstairs.
Was Ron Guidry with you?
Ron Guidry absolutely was there. In fact, I did a book with Guidry a year later.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, thinking back about Jim Bouton and Ball 4, if Sparky would keep a diary with me, we would really have something. And what I didn't realize was that Sparky was really angry. And he was angry because after winning the Cy Young Award, he was making $140,000 a year. Steinbrenner signed Goose Gossage to a $2 million contract and took his job away from Sparky. So as the season went along, Sparky's anger got to be more and more.
Yeah.
So in addition to his wonderful ability to tell stories, and he was a great storyteller, he also, told people for the very first time what Steinbrenner was doing, which was bugging the hell out of Billy Martin, which was, making ridiculous decisions and making everybody crazy. And so the other part that made the Bronx Zoo so fabulous was that the Yankees were 14 games behind the Boston Red Sox in 1978. And they came back and they tied at the end of the season, and they had a playoff game. And Bucky Dent hit a home run to beat the Red Sox, Bucky effing Dent. And the Yankees went on to win the pennant and beat the Los Angeles Dodgers in the World Series. So, I mean, you can't have a better setup than that. Yeah. And then when the book came out, oh my goodness, it was like an atom bomb exploded over New York City. We sold 220,000 hardcover books, the Bronx Zoo. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
Are you ever surprised by the response to your material, to your books? I'm sure it's heartwarming.
No, I'm only surprised when there isn't one.
Yeah. You like that answer, folks? I love that answer. You've got a little Dangerfield in you a little bit, Rodney Dangerfield.
I used to go see him all
maybe
the
little
time.
Rickles
I used to go see him all the time. He was absolutely fabulous.
Oh, yeah, those guys. Yeah,
he was.
That was good stuff. Doug Harvey. Yeah, They Called Me God.
This was an interesting project. Doug was just beginning to get Alzheimer's. So I'm sure if we had done this, say, 2 years earlier, it would have been, twice as good a book. But I was able to get out of him what I was able to get out of him. And he was such a, fabulous umpire. His reputation was such that the book did fine. The book did just fine. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned did you play sports as well as a kid? Left-handed?
Oh, yeah.
Lefty? Yeah.
No, I was right-handed.
You're right-handed, but you...
Oh, I'm right-handed, but I batted lefty because Mickey was a switch hitter. Yeah, no.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was the captain of the Camp Winookie softball team.
Were you really?
I was.
To even say it or spell it was amazing. Fairly amazing.
Hey, with a W-I-N-A-U-K-E-E, Winookie is the camp for you and me.
And that's why he's a journalist, folks.
That's it.
One of many incredible reasons. Wrigleyville.
Wrigleyville was a very interesting book to write because the Cubs, Cubs at the time that I wrote it, they wouldn't let the Billy Goat in for the 1945 World Series, and they lost. And so, I can't remember the last time the Cubs won the World Series, 1918, something like that. Yeah. So way back then. And so it's sort of a history of a team that was losing. But I must say that the people I interviewed were just fabulous. I went to a Cubs fantasy camp in Phoenix, Arizona, where I found 8 or 9 of them. And it was fabulous. It was where I met Santo, who was one of the great characters of all time.
Yeah.
And we're sitting and having lunch one day during the fantasy camp. And I happened to mention that I had done this book with Billy Martin, not realizing that Santo really, for some reason, hated his guts. So he reaches over the table and grabs me by the throat. Ron, easy. He realized what he was doing, and he backed off and apologized. Wow. But it was sort of an interesting introduction to Ron Santo's passions.
That would be.
and he gave me a fabulous interview too. He was just fantastic.
He did, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Hundley was the guy who ran that team. He was the catcher for the Cubs. And Hundley was the one who invited me down and gave me the opportunity to interview all those guys. It was fabulous, just fabulous.
Some people debate, they talk about baseball, they talk about football, and the love that America has for football as well, with baseball being, America's pastime, but football being sort of like America's current the love affair with football. Tell us about
it keeps us out of war. Football keeps us out of war. So instead of going to war,
out on the field.
Instead of going to war, we go to football game
and work it out on the field.
Oh yeah. No,
it's a good way to look at it.
Going to a University of Florida game, a Florida State game, Michigan against Ohio State. You remember some of the great games. Rick Reichardt's a good friend of mine. He used to play center field for the California Angels before he got hurt. He was one of the ends that Wisconsin played USC in this game that I remember when I was a kid, and the score was 42-37. This is absolutely Ron Vanderkellen. Where do you remember these things? You just do. Right. And I couldn't believe it when I found out that Reichhardt was the end on that Wisconsin team. It's amazing.
It's incredible. The Forever Boys is another too.
Yeah. That's an interesting story. I didn't usually get the USA Today, but on that day I got it, and I opened it up in the middle of it to the sports, and there was a little ad about that big. And it said, if you want to play in the first senior professional baseball league, call this number. Jim Morley was the guy who was starting the league. So I thought, boy, wouldn't this be a fabulous, fabulous opportunity to sit with these major leaguers and hear their stories and have them talk about how much they love the game. And so I went down to the Breakers there in Palm Beach, and I sat with all the owners of all these teams, and I decided that I would want to spend the season with the West Palm Beach team. Again, my memory. Dick Williams was the manager of that team. And the Mets fabulous home run hitter, hit all those home runs. Left fielder. Mm-hmm. Come on, help me out.
Yeah, I know.
Anyhow, he was the left fielder. So that's the team that I wanted to spend the season with.
Yeah.
And they said, okay. The next day I got a call back from the PR guy from the West Palm Beach Tropics. He said, forget it. We don't want you. Turned out he didn't want me because he was a friend of Jim Valvano's. And I had just written personal fouls and gotten Jim Valvano fired. Okay. So I called Jim Morley and I said, West Palm Beach Tropics don't want me. What should I do? He said, well, I own the St. Petersburg Pelicans. Why don't you come and spend the year, the 4-month year with us? And I said, fabulous. Okay, great. That's what we'll do. So I moved moved my whole family down to St. Petersburg to spend the season with the St. Pete Pelicans. So I get there the first day, and it was so amazing. Doc Ellis was the pitching coach. Bobby Tolan was the manager. So Tolan calls me in, and Tolan says to me, I think we have a problem. I said, what's that, Bobby? He says, well, some of these players don't want, strange journalists floating around. So I said, I'll tell you what, let me talk to these guys and tell them exactly what it is that I'm doing. And while I'm doing this, Doc Ellis is walking around my chair. He's going, loser writer, loser writer, loser writer. Doc and I ended up being very close friends. But at any rate, so from there, I go into the clubhouse of the St. Pete Pelicans, and they've got all these former professional baseball players standing there. And I proceed to stand in the middle of all of them and tell them that what I really want to do is talk about their history while they were ball players and their love of the game and why they've come back to play baseball, professional baseball, one more time. And I said to them, if any of you want to read what I'm writing about you prior to my publishing it, you're more than welcome. So the meeting was over. I had no idea whether I was welcome back or not. Nobody said a word. The meeting was over. But we were getting on the bus the next day to go to Winter Haven to play the Winter Haven Super Sox, the Red Sox team. And I got on the bus, and nobody said a word. And I spent that entire magnificent season with the St. Petersburg Pelicans. And I still talk to some of those guys. That was 1989-90. It was wonderful, really. Absolutely. And we won the championship.
Yes, that's incredible.
Yeah.
This one, too, of course, near and dear to my heart. Amazing. The miraculous history of New York's most beloved baseball team. What do you think makes them so beloved in New York?
Well, it started with Casey Stengel. I mean, there's no two ways about that. The smartest thing they could ever have done was hire Casey Stengel. Because, after that, they had a couple of managers who were so incredibly boring that nobody much cared. And then, fortunately, Gil Hodges came around, and then they started to care again. But, they were mostly former Brooklyn Dodger and New York Giant fans.
Yeah.
They were so happy to have a team.
My father being one of them.
Again. Because these people were not about to go to Yankee Stadium and root for the Yankees. No how.
They went from Dodgers to Mets. That's what my father
Dodger to Mets, Giants to Mets. And somewhere along the line, Tom Seaver showed up. And he was magnificent. Tom, terrific. He was great. And they had stars. And they won a championship in '69 under Gil, which was, nobody expected that. Yeah. And they did. And they won again in '86 when the ball went through Buckner's legs. It was fabulous.
Yeah.
And so I got to meet some just magnificent, wonderful people. Gary Carter and I became close. And Ron Swoboda and I are still close. Fabulous, fabulous people. And Lenny Dykstra stole my money.
There's a theme here. You're getting the theme, folks? There's a theme here. That is funny. Red Sox, speaking of Bill Buckner and company, Red Sox Nation, too. You've covered them. Tell us about this.
Yeah, well, I did a book called Fenway.
Yes, you did. Yes.
Fenway, which was before the Red Sox won in 2004 with Johnny Damon.
Yeah.
And so the publisher wanted me to do an update of Fenway, including the championship in 2004. And that's what Red Sox Nation is. It's a really big, fat book of interviews with a lot of really wonderful Red Sox players.
Do you ever feel like sometimes you're a kid in a candy store when you get
every minute of my life?
Yeah.
Just about.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah. You're like, there's somebody like this kid who dreamed of all of this. And it's
the sad thing, though, that I have to tell you this. The sad thing that happened when Barnes and Noble came along and started distributing their stores all over America, a lot of the independent bookstores closed. And the success of these team histories that I was doing was because of the independent bookstores. An independent bookstore would order 100 books. And then if they sold 100, they would sell another 100. Barnes & Noble would order 2 of your books. I mean, it didn't matter what you were writing about. They'd order 2 books. And you can't make bestsellers from team histories when the bookstores in that team's area is only selling 2 books. So I had to switch a little bit from writing team histories to writing stories with, famous people.
Right. I know. And now everything is online. Do you find that helpful?
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know what's helpful.
Love that answer.
Look, I only know how to do one thing in life. And one thing, 2 things in life. I can play first base and I can write books. Aside from that, I don't have a clue. I have no idea. I don't.
Is that the title of your next book when you do your memoir?
I don't have a clue.
I never had a clue,
Yeah.
but I was always in on the action.
That would be it. Yes.
That you heard it here first, folks. Well, you mentioned, writing about others. There's this one too.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, Richard Painter, who was George W. Bush's ethicist, if you can put those 2 words together, George W. Bush. And
you don't want to ever say that word incorrect on air.
So we wrote this fabulous book in March of 2019. And Richard came to St. Petersburg, and we did several shows where we sold a hell of a lot of books on March 12th and 13th. And on March 15th, the country shut down. COVID shut the country down on March 15th. Bookstores closed. People stayed home.
Everything.
People died. A lot of people died. 1 million people died. And the sales of American Hero died with them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
that's too bad.
I know. Isn't it amazing?
Good book, though. Good book. If you want to know who the most criminal president we've ever had, read that book.
That book is there and available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're involved in this too, huh?
Yeah.
We really picked a variety of different things here.
Boy, oh boy.
Did my research.
I love this guy. I love this guy. He was a bank robber. And after he went to jail for his, 47 bank robberies. No, I'm sorry. Jewelry store robbers. He robbed jewelry stores is what he did. And we wrote this book where he talked about what he wanted potential future jewelry store and bank robbers to know. So it's a sort of
how to,
but how to not. How to not.
Right.
So he felt from being a gangster, he went from being a gangster to being a redeemed gangster, which is why we called it that. And he goes and he talks to youth groups. Terrific guy.
Yeah. With this extraordinary career that you've had and continue to have in sports journalism and so much more, what are some things and people that you still would like to do and people that are on your list that you would love to converse with? I know today with this show, there they are right there.
There they are again.
They want to know. Inquiring minds want to know. See,
yes.
You come on the Jim Masters show and your phone rings as a result.
That's it.
I know being on the Jim Masters show was one of the pinnacles for you, and that was on the bucket list. But aside from that,
it has. Compared to my softball game today, this has just been a pleasure.
That's right.
Yes.
Who are some that you would hope to still chat with, and those who maybe are no longer with us that you wish you had the opportunity to spend a few moments with?
Well, I spent 3 years trying to get for heaven's sakes, this is a terrible thing. Burt Reynolds. I tried for 3 years to get Burt Reynolds to write a book with me. After writing my book on the University of Florida, Go Gators. I was writing Go Knowles. Unfortunately, the fella who bankrolled Go Gators died. Terrible thing. So I wasn't able to write Go Knowles, but was one of the people I interviewed for Go Knowles was Burt Reynolds. He was a fabulous halfback for Florida State University in the 1950s. And we talked for a couple of hours, and I love this guy. Yeah. I just love him. He told me fabulous, fabulous stories. One day I hope to do something with that material, and if only to put it into the, Florida State, alumni rag. Though they'd have to take, 50 pages of it. That's the problem.
He did have a love for, well, of course, Lonnie Anderson, but he also had a love for Dinah Shore, didn't he?
And Sally Fields too. I think
Sally
somehow
Field,
part of that. But having done that book with Tony Curtis, I loved the gossip related to movies, making movies, movie stars, working with directors, all of that. I just adored that sort of thing. Yeah. And I wanted to do that with Burt. It would have been so much fun. But what I didn't know was that he was ill.
You're not doing well. Do you see yourself doing more of that genre?
Yeah, I would love to. The problem is, how do you get in touch with the people to get them to do it? It's most of the books I've been doing the last 20 years have been brought to me by agents. How would you like to do a book with Donald Driver? Well, great. I'd love to do a book with Donald Driver. And we did a book, and it was a big bestseller. But I could not have, called Donald Driver on the phone. He had to come to me.
Right, exactly.
And that's the difficult part of it. That is hard. I mean, I would love to do a book with Rodriguez, A-Rod. I mean, I'm just crazy about that guy. I think he's the best shortstop in the history of the game of baseball. He'd be a fabulous book, and Barry Bonds would be another one.
Did the whole steroid situation bother you as
Not
that
in the
was
least.
happening? Tell us about your thoughts on how you felt about it.
No, well, I mean, Lenny Dykstra is the one who started it all. He's the one who put Barry Bonds on steroids at all. And after a while, the players knew about it. The managers knew about it. The owners knew about it. The trainers knew about it. The doctors knew about it. Mm-hmm. Was anybody doing anything about it? No. And then after they were using it, at that point, they decided, well, let's make it all illegal. So all the guys who were taking it, now it's illegal. And they got nailed. Or actually, they really didn't get nailed, but they got accused.
Right.
And that's keeping them out of the Hall of Fame. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why do you love doing
it? And again, I think I'm in the minority. I think most people disagree with me. Yeah. But you're allowed to disagree with me. It's okay.
That's it. Why do you love doing what you're doing? You've been doing it so long, Peter, and you're such an expert, and your writing style is infectious. You draw people in. You want to know more. When the book is done, you hate that it's finished. You can't ready to pick up another work by Peter. Why do you love doing it so much as you do?
You got me. I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea why.
What a great answer to that question. I mean, my big build up and everything. Yeah. You got me.
I don't know. I
pick up the pen and I just go.
I do what I enjoy.
Yes.
I mean, it really, really comes down to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just, I like to say that, Lou Gehrig said he was the luckiest man on the face of this earth, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
I was.
And am. You know who else?
I mean, you go over, all the various steps along the way. If somehow I hadn't become the sports editor of the Dartmouth, if I hadn't had a friend at the Stanford Advocate, who was the sports editor who gave me, press passes to all the games. If Nick Dincheko had been a Red Sox fan instead of a Yankee fan, I'd probably be, 45 years a lawyer of some sort.
I think you might have also, as my father has always told me, you probably would have gone into comedy. And somebody that would agree is Mr. George Burns, who always pops into our show. There he is.
The closest I came to comedy was going to all the comedy clubs. I was a wonderful audience. I was
writing a book on George. That would be interesting. He's somebody. My aunt collected dolls and talk about collections. Serious, spent a lot of money on dolls of all kinds. And this got passed down to me. The family, my cousin Barbara said, "Jim, would you like the George Burns doll?" And I said, "Absolutely." And here he is with his cigar and his, he's always down here below with his martini.
Let me show you I'm going to take my camera and show you the crazy stuff.
Once I show the George Burns doll, everybody wants to show what they have. And I love that.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
We'll do a full screen.
I'll let you guess. I'll let you guess what I collect.
George will have the martini down there. Oh, let's take a look at this.
That's just some of them. And here are more of them. And here are more of them. And back over there. Let's see. There they are. Well, way in the back. Yeah. So I've got a whole room of bobbleheads. You've got George Burns.
Do you have the Tom Seaver one? I got the Tom Seaver one.
Well, I'll give you my address. You can send it to me. Yes, I have one of Tom, but I'll take another one.
I won. Well, one I had, and then one I won in a contest, and I was like, "Wow, that's quite ironic," And for it to be Tom, well, I think basically, Peter, we are nothing but we are kids in adult clothing. Basically,
there's no two ways about it.
That's.
I'll tell you a funny story. On Sunday, back in 1966, when I was 21, I was the baseball counselor at Camp Androscoggin, and I had an undefeated baseball team of 11-year-olds. And on Sunday, we had a Zoom session with 6 of my starting players from that 1966 team. And I've got to tell you, they're now 66 years old. They're exactly the same as they were when they were 11.
Wow. Isn't that something?
It is.
That is something. That is cool. This was, how's life in Florida? You're enjoying Florida?
Every minute, every day.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When did you make that your home? How long ago?
Well, with the St. Pete Pelicans.
That was.
I came on October 31st, 1989.
Yeah.
And I'm driving down the Bayway, and I'm looking as the sun is going down over the Don Cesar Hotel, and it's 75 degrees on October 31st. And I said to myself, why would you want to live anywhere else? I never left. Well, I came back to sell my house in Richfield, came back in June of 1990. I've been here ever since, in this house.
Richfield's a nice town. The Playhouse is fantastic. They have some amazing people who come through the Playhouse. Ridgefield Playhouse, for those watching in Ridgefield, Connecticut, which is over toward Fairfield County towards New York.
It's near Danbury.
Great New England town. Absolutely. Do you make your way back up north for holidays or for any summer visits or anything?
In April, I go back to New York for my rotisserie draft, where we have to draft players for the year. I had Aaron Judge this year, I'm glad to say.
Yeah.
But not very often, no.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, this was really a treat. This really, really was a treat. We covered so much ground and so many different people and memories. And again,
no, I'm exhausted. I'm going to have to go take a nap.
You didn't realize you did all this.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you got to.
Who knew?
Who knew?
Jeez, Whiz.
You remind me a little bit too of Gary Marshall. You know Gary Marshall, of
I
course.
love Gary Marshall.
All the
Sure.
movies, Happy Days. I mean, everything.
Yeah.
Laverne and Shirley. There's a
Laverne and
little bit.
Shirley.
There's a little bit of
Yes.
that.
Yes.
You lived in Connecticut, but did you grow up? You born and raised in Connecticut or New
I was
York?
born and raised in Stamford, Connecticut,
In
and then I went to
Stamford.
Hanover, New Hampshire, and then I was in New York City for NYU Law School. I was in the city for another 3 or 4 years, and I moved to Englewood, New Jersey.
So you
I
have
went to
done
then
the
I then,
tri-state area.
then I went to New Canaan. I went to New Canaan, Connecticut,
Canaan.
Ridgefield, Connecticut, and finally to St. Petersburg.
The books we're talking about, all of his material, everything available at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and where books are sold. The latest being this work of art, Whispers of the Gods. I know we're talking about this. This is recent, and congratulations on it, Peter. It's a must-read. All of these books are. Are you already thinking about and working on another one?
Well, they want me to do Whispers of the Gods too.
Do they really?
Yeah, they do, which I'm not going to call Whispers of the Gods 2. I'll call it something else. I'm also working on a book, which I just retitled about an hour ago. It's called 22 Days. A woman by the name of Sherry Papini in Redding, California in 2016 disappeared for 22 days.
Mm.
And the police and everybody went looking for her. And after 22 days, she showed up, beat up. Her nose was broken. She had been supposedly kidnapped by 2 Mexican women. She goes back to her husband, and the police continue the investigation. And 4 years later, discover semen on her underpants, which they had found when she was found. And it turned out that she had not been kidnapped at all, that she had run away, causing all sorts of terrible business.
Right.
November 8th of this year, she was sentenced to 18 months in prison.
That's right. I remember.
Fined $360,000. So Keith Papini and I are working on his story.
That should be amazing. We'll definitely keep a lookout for that. Extraordinary. You're in a sweet spot, Peter. You're living your bliss. I know it's a lot of work. I know we make all these things seem so effortless and easy. We want to do that.
It's a lot of interviewing and a lot what but that's okay.
No carpal tunnel syndrome, huh?
No, I still use my what do you call these things? Cassette tapes. I still use cassette tapes.
Oh yeah, I've got a ton of those. You've got a good Maxell there. Yeah.
Everybody else goes digital.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to transcribe, but I haven't figured out how to do that.
That quite yet.
No, I know.
Well, this was really a pleasure. Thanks for stopping by. And like I said, we have conversations here, kind of like Cavett and Carson's style. The audience gets a chance to really learn about the person, what motivates them, their passions, and then some of their extraordinary work. And this really was.
No, you do a beautiful job, Jim. You do a great job.
I appreciate that very much, Peter. We're going to keep that porch light on for you, and you're welcome back anytime. Spread the word about the Jim Masters Show series. We'd really appreciate that, and does take a village. And I hope the show met whatever expectations you had, Peter, and you enjoyed the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you.
I never do these things with any expectations whatsoever, but it was terrific. I thank you so much.
My father from Astoria has always said, whenever anybody says something kind or nice, he told us this when we were kids, Jim, whenever anybody says something kind or nice to you, make sure you ask them to put it in writing and address it management. Address it management.
Your dad sounds like something of a character himself.
A terrific, real Irish sense of humor. You got it. Absolutely. Absolutely. You be well, Peter. Best of the holidays to you and your family. And thanks so much for stopping by the show. Truly, thoroughly enjoyed this. And congratulations on everything thus far in your career.
Thanks. You're very kind. Thanks so much. Take care.
You be well. Go make a sandwich now. You've earned it. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Peter Golenbock here on the Jim Masters Show. Wasn't that a fantastic and fascinating conversation, folks? Whether you are a sports fan or a baseball fan or not, you learn something new about just about the process, right? And all these interviews and all these incredible people he's had an opportunity to meet over the years. I'm talking about legendary people. He met Jackie Robinson. There's Jackie Robinson when he was with the Brooklyn Dodgers. He's with Pee Wee Reese. My father has always enjoyed the Dodgers, who of course then went to Los Angeles. And then everybody either they became Giants fans too, or were already Giants fans, and they became New York Mets fans. But there's a scrapbook that my father has actually given me that he has of all these newspaper clippings of the Dodgers when he was a kid, and all the newspaper articles. And also, in addition to that, the baseball cards, the Brooklyn Dodgers baseball cards that I have that he gave to me. And I love that. And sometimes we look through them together, and we just, tells me different things about this player and that player. Because of course, for me, in New York, the Mets and the Yankees were the teams, and have so many of their baseball cards. I have a ton of baseball cards from over the years, from childhood. And that bat I showed earlier, if you didn't see it, that was incredible. That was a promotion that Magnavox did. My father picked that up when I was playing Little League, actually. I played right field. I'm left-handed. So when I throw a baseball or any ball, when I throw it, it always arcs high. Even if we're just playing catch with like a friend or with family, it always arcs high because I'm so used to having to throw it high and, wide from right field. And then after I'm throwing it for a while, then the arc starts to come down, and then it settles and it goes straight on. Really cool. He shared so many memories. He's got a great sense of humor, doesn't he? He's like, what's the question I asked something about, this blessing of doing what you do and why you love it so much. He's like, beats me. I just do it. He's a hoot and a holler, and a terrific sports journalist, writer, author, 10 New York Times bestsellers, 10 and counting. And again, we only touched on the surface. It was funny because he's probably going to go make a sandwich. Some of these guests have these epic careers, and we go through them, and we just really shine the light. And then they tell these extraordinary stories. He shared some real nuggets, real gems of stories with us here exclusively on the show, which I thought was fantastic. Kind of interesting. I didn't expect him to say he also enjoys sort of the celebrity gossip side of things. I didn't realize that, but it was after he wrote the book about with Tony Curtis that sort of sparked his interest in that celebrity gossip sort of area, that genre, which I thought was cool. Yeah, there I am with my cousin Jason, who came down from Connecticut, and this was at Shea Stadium when I was a kid. And I've got my bag there that has my cameras in it, so I can get the photos. And I've got my notepad and my pen, dressed like a little mini Jimmy Masters, the reporter. My cousin Jason, he's got his cap on, and he has his mitt. My mitt too. I think my father was holding my mitt as he was taking this photo of us at Shea Stadium, which is now called Citi Field, there in New York City. And Jason has he's got his glove there ready to catch a foul ball. And he actually did come his way, which is really, really cool. And we had such a great time. Dad took us to Shea Stadium to see the Mets back then. That was a lot of fun. Cool stuff, and all this content, really amazing. We talked about all these great books and all these characters, all these amazing people that he's had an opportunity to chat with, meet, celebrate, share stories about, the teams, the players, the managers, the owners. There's George Steinbrenner. Then, of course, the Tony Curtis book. Here's a little bit of, there you go. Look at that. I could see that one, and I see that one, and I see that one, and I see that one. It's almost like a big reveal. That's funny. It goes across the screen like that. And just incredible stories here. Cool stuff. On the Jim Masters Show, live entertainment lifestyle variety talk show series, we touch upon all these different topics about life, from Broadway and Hollywood television actors, musicians, singers, to sports stars, writers, authors, comedians, psychics, culinary art, experts, foodies. This show talks about everything. We have every kind of guest you can think of. That's what makes it, that's variety. Variety is the spice of life. And it keeps it interesting for me, your host and producer too, to have all these different guests on with all these different interests. I just think it's so cool. Because again, whether you are a super fan of the particular genre or the topic or the guest, on the Jim Masters Show series, you always have a good time and you learn something, and we're always entertained. We always try to throw in a laugh or two as well. We always manage to do that. Gang, this was fantastic. Really appreciate you guys being with us. Happy holidays. At the time of this broadcast, we're in the midst of the holiday season. Of course, we've got our set decorated for the holidays, as we do annually as well. We like to, put some holiday spirit. You've got a couple of things there. You got the Santa Claus there. You've got the snowman over there, and poinsettias and gifts and big Christmas tree. This thing's huge. It's so big you can't even see the top. It is a monster Christmas tree we have here on set for all of you to enjoy, to put you in the holiday spirit, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, any of the holidays, Hanukkah, Christmas, all of it. We thank Peter for joining us, truly. Amazing special guest, acclaimed sports journalist, baseball historian, New York Times best-selling author, joining us here exclusively on The Jim Masters Show. If you enjoyed this episode, folks, we thank you for watching. Be sure and give us a like on our YouTube channel. There's a like button there. Make sure you click like. Yeah, click that thumbs up. Before you scoot off, click the thumbs up, and please do leave a comment on the YouTube channel. We love when you do it in the chat room, of course, but that's temporary. When you leave it on the YouTube channel, it's permanent, it's there. And guess what? It actually helps our channel grow because YouTube sees that. They love that interaction. We do too. We appreciate it. And then more people get to view these episodes. So you really, if you enjoy what we're doing here, all this hard work, help us out and leave a comment. And also give us a thumbs up. And be sure, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, which has hundreds of episodes, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes of our series with extraordinary people, great guests, and just good times, be sure and subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's a red subscribe button there on the YouTube channel. Click subscribe. That helps us. You're a part of the JMS Lovity squad. When you do that, it doesn't cost anything. And we'd really appreciate it. So subscribe, like, comment, do all those cool things. And we thank you so very, very much for doing that. We're going to scoot off. We hope you're doing well. We hope you're having a good day wherever you're watching from around the world. We thank Peter for joining us. And we thank all of you for joining us as well on this episode of The Jim Masters Show, Entertainment Lifestyle Variety Talk Show series. Take care, gang. So great to have you here. We don't say goodbye. We say see you later. Ciao, cheers, slancha, hasta la vista. We say buenos noches. We say sayonara, shalom, and all the rest. And take care. Take care of one another. Be good to one another. Love one another. Take care of yourself. And have a good rest of your day. If you're watching live, catch us on the next one. Amazing guests are coming up here on the Jim Masters Show series. And if you're watching this, Memorex, that cassette that he held up was a Maxell. And Memorex, of course, you may remember, were cassette tapes as well. Still are, if you can find them. Memorex, we say in our archives. So if you're watching this later on archived, we appreciate you being here as well. You can see all these episodes again, all saved and archived for you. So if you came in late and you missed something with this episode, no fret, no worry. You can see the whole thing. You can watch it from the beginning on our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. All right. Thanks for everything, gang. We love having you here, whether you're watching, when the shows are airing live or otherwise. It's always cool to have you here. You be well. We'll see you on the next episode. I'll be right here waiting for you. I'll be in this host chair waiting for you on the next episode of the Jim Masters Show series. Love you all. Take care and be well. Cheers.